Hi everyone, it's Christian Butzek with Remax Crest right here in downtown Vancouver. And the topic of today's video blog is, where do I find the best deal? And that is a question I'm asked a lot in this business by buyers. Buyers who come through my open house will occasionally ask me, how do I get the best deal? Where is that deal? So I wanted to share with you 5 times that you could get the best deal. And the first one is an estate sale. In my career, I've noticed that in an estate sale, and an estate sale is where the owner has passed away, and so the family estate is now selling the property. In my experience, in this case, the family just wants to move on with the sale of the home, and they're often not greedy at all. And in one case, I recall where my clients, a younger couple, we made an offer on a place substantially lower than the asking price. It was a good $30,000 to $40,000, if I remember correctly. And you know what? The estate came back and accepted the offer, and they didn't even negotiate. So that I've found is the best place to get a good deal. Now, a second example where you can find a deal is when a listing has poor marketing. What do I mean by poor marketing? I mean bad photos. You see this online, you go on the MLS, and you click through the photos, and maybe there's 2, 3, or just the one. And the listing agent has used their phone, a 5-year-old iPhone that is dark, and taken a few photos. And that doesn't make a good first impression online, right? The whole reason why I hire professional photographers is because it just gives a wow to the home. It lights it up. And that first impression online is so important, right? And so if the photos look dark and they look crappy, well, you don't want to go out and look at the place. And if you feel that way, you can imagine 9 out of 10 other people are going to feel that way too. And so that property is going to have less people coming out to look at it. Less people means less competition, and there's a better opportunity that you can come in at a lower price point and negotiate a better deal. So I found that as an example. And again, a couple of years ago, we had an example where the agent had just done very, very poor job. Really dark pictures that just, of the countertop, for example, but it worked to our advantage because we got inside, we saw the potential, my client did, and he went with it. The third example of finding a good deal is a tenanted property. Now, why would that be? Well, a tenanted property, occasionally tenants will restrict access. And when they do that, it means it's really hard to get inside. See, if an owner was selling their own home, they'll tell their listing agent, sure, you can do the open house on Saturday, you can do it on Sunday, you can do showings while I'm at work between 8 and 6 p.m. Have at it. Have every single potential buyer come through. But tenants don't feel that way, right? It's their home. They really have nothing to gain by cooperating. Now, many of them still do, but quite a few of them don't. And it's not uncommon, I've found in my experience, that a tenant might allow you to go in once a week, and they give you oddball times, like 11 o'clock Sunday morning to Sunday noon. Well, how many people can make that time, right? Most people will be with their family Sunday morning, maybe going to church. So that's a really odd time. 9 out of 10 buyers cannot get into that property. Maybe only 1 will be able to get into that property. And if you're the only one offering on that property, guess what? You can come in a lot lower. You're not in competition with other competing offers. Easier to get a bargain that way. Okay, so tenanted properties where the tenants are not being cooperative. A fourth place to find a deal, and this is especially if you have any kind of contracting background, if you're a handyman, you have some carpentry skills, or you have people who can do renovation work for you. Whenever a property is in a original condition or it's looking dated, there haven't been any updates for 30 years, you can go in sometimes and negotiate pretty hard. And we had a case like that just before Christmas where we helped, I helped my clients buy a townhouse in Richmond. And in that case, it was dated, it was older, and very simply, the sellers were just not in a position to do those renovations because it would have cost money, you know, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. Or they just didn't want to because it requires a lot of time and energy to coordinate those renovations. And if you're a seller, you might not want to do those renovations because once you've done them, if you haven't done them tastefully, a buyer comes in and they're not going to buy your renos, or they might not pay for those renos because it doesn't appeal to their tastes. So whenever a home looks really dated, that may be another good opportunity to go in really low with your offer and really negotiate hard and try to get some kind of a savings. And finally, maybe the best place to find a deal is with a motivated seller. So what does that mean exactly? Motivated really means desperate. And so occasionally you have a seller who really needs to sell. And a great example I can think of in my career is on one occasion a couple of years ago, I came across a seller, I found out, had a bridge loan. So they had bought a property and they hadn't yet sold their other place. And when you're holding on to the other place, now you're making double mortgage payments. And they had to get the loan from the bank for the place they had purchased. And so that money was the bridge while they were waiting to sell their place and then pay that money to the bank. Well, a bridge loan can be really expensive. It can get up to 7 and 8%. And that can be several $1,000s. It can be I've heard of it being up to $8,000, $9,000 a month. And so you have to be very, very careful in terms of how you time the sale of your property. But if you're a buyer and you're looking at a place like that and your buyer's agent, for example, if I'm your buyer's agent, I'm trying to find out as much information as I can because that's my job. That's my fiduciary duty to you, is to learn as much as I can. And so if I get a hint, either the agent has put that in writing, they've said it to me on the phone, they've suggested that, of course I'm going to be sharing that with my clients. And when we know that the seller's in that kind of position where they absolutely have to sell it, of course you would negotiate much lower. And so you can get a much better deal that way. They've got to sell. They're bleeding money every single month. So that would be the fifth way, finding a motivated / desperate seller. So those are the 5 ways. Let's recap them. Number 1 is an estate sale, where the owner has passed away and the estate is selling the property. The second is poor marketing, which really means crappy photos. The third is a tenanted property where access is restricted and very few people can get in to view the property, or as I like to say, test drive the car, right? Because you're not going to buy unless you get a feel, walk around, get a sense of what the place is like. Fourth is when a place needs work. It looks dated, looks old. A lot of people don't want to take that work on. And fifth is a motivated seller. They have to sell. They got to get out of potentially a bridge loan, or they've moved. They just need to sell. Those are the 5 places that I'd suggest you look to find a really good deal. So if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch. You can just drop us a line on the blog. Thank you very much for tuning in.